here's the deal. Every single poll shows that Donald Trump is way out in front. So then the question becomes, who do you get as the VP? We're going to talk about that. Let me know, by the way, in your comments here, because I have some new intel that I want to bring to you. I was talking with some people in the know, shall we say, just yesterday afternoon, and I want to share some of that conversation with you. But before I do, let me know who you're thinking. And it doesn't have to be just a woman. That's what I actually want to talk about, because I know we've all been sort of, and I've been one of them, we've been talking about this idea of a woman and a woman only, but maybe we should be more expansive. So let's think about that for a second. And as we think about that, look, I mean, all of these different characters that are, I say characters, all these people, these wonderful people that are in line for potentially becoming vice president of the United States. So many of them have wonderful stories, right? Really, really great stories themselves. And they have often overcome tremendous odds to get to where they are. Okay, do I have any names? Any names? I mean, I'm wondering if we should maybe rethink the woman thing, although, this is an up and comer. Elise Stefanik, I know some of you guys like her. She was just HELL on wheels, was she not, when she took down the Harvard president and the MIT and the U Penn. I think the MIT lady is the only one who still has a job. I'm talking about Elise Stefanik from New York. Could she possibly be the vice president? Here she is today. I want you guys to see her coming out swinging against the president.
Good morning. First, House Republicans are so excited to welcome back our majority leader, the legend from Louisiana, Steve Scalise. Welcome back, Steve. We're so excited to have you back. Before we talk about the week ahead, I want to touch on the bombshell report last week from the special counsel confirming that President Biden retained and mishandled classified documents for years in unsecure location. Special counsel Hur's decision to not prosecute Biden because of his deteriorating mental state further demonstrates the un-American two-tier justice system that exists in Joe Biden's America. There cannot be one set of rules if your last name is Biden and another set of rules for the rest of America. And the American people know that if someone is mentally unfit to stand trial, they are unfit to serve as commander-in-chief. Turning to our agenda of this week, House Republicans will continue to deliver on our promises. Yesterday, after a year-long investigation led by the House Homeland Security Committee under the leadership of Chairman Mark Green, we executed our constitutional duty impeaching Secretary Mayorkas for violating his oath to support and defend the Constitution, subvert the rule of law, and breach the American public's trust. Impeachment is just one step. The Senate must pass House Republicans' Secure the Border Act, the strongest border security bill in history, to stop the invasion at our borders, which we are seeing under Joe
President of the United States, but she also gives herself, her fellow Republicans, a pat on the back for the impeachment of Mr. Mayorkas. You may have seen me. I know I saw some of you guys here. Leslie, I saw you. I think David, you were here as well last night when we got that news. I was like, oh, I gotta get back up and talk to y'all, because we got the news crossing last night that Mayorkas was out. Finally. I mean, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't take these things on if you can't see them through, regardless of whether you think, oh, it was just a charade, it's just theater, oh, they need to do something. The point was, Mike Johnson said he was going to do it, and then he kind of needs to do it. And they couldn't get it done first time around. They did, in fact, get this through last night. So it was kind of a big deal. But, one of the things that we're talking about here is who exactly would be the vice president that would help Donald Trump get to the finish line with a big wind at his back, right? Like you want the push at the final, at the end, right? So you need to be thoughtful about organization, which is what Lara Trump was just talking about. You need to actually have a ground game. You need to make sure everybody's registered. You need to make sure that they vote early. What is the expression? We vote early and often in Chicago. not that. I mean, everything has to be legal and on the up and up. But you know what? If they can get absentee ballots in, then hey, you know what? We can do that too. And so you work hard to make sure that people are getting their absentee ballots in. You make sure you get the ground game. And then you make sure that you sew up whatever you can in the middle. So Donald Trump's challenge, every time you look at these polls, is that he's suffering with people that are kind of in the middle. Not entirely. In fact, there was a New York Times study that just came out yesterday, like a focus group. And what was amazing is 12 out of the 13 independents that they were talking to were all going for Trump because they're so sick of everything that's happening. The economy was their number one issue, followed by the border, followed by the money that we're spending overseas. So these are issues that resonate with everyday Americans. What Donald Trump risks is that women are so turned off, and this is exactly what they're going to play to. I mean, you got a lot of women that watch The View, and The View just hits home on this every single day. So they're playing to fear. He's a bad guy. He's mean, this, that, and the other. And so that's where there is weakness. All right. I'm just being a realist here, guys. And that's all I can be at this moment. So let's just remember that. And so we've talked about, well, what is the answer then? Do you put in a woman to help sort of soften him, diffuse things? Remember, Mike Pence, Mike Pence didn't make it or break it for him, but Mike Pence gave him some credibility with the evangelical community back in 2016. Mike Pence was like perfect right out of central casting at the time. I couldn't have picked a better person because I was like, okay, somebody who kind of will just be supportive, not be argumentative, not steal all his thunder, looks good, isn't taller than him. I mean, we're being candid, are we not? We'll be totally candid. So, just don't take me out of context. But I thought, this will work. So who works now? On the women's side, it's just tough because when you look at the polling data, a lot of women struggle with other women. Like, I couldn't believe this in New Hampshire. Well, I can kind of, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's like her own breed, but it really amazed me that the people she did the worst with were women. I mean, how does that make sense? The woman candidate is failing to attract female support. More women went with Trump. So remember that. I mean, Hillary Clinton, she was a really special woman, right? Like, I actually think that Nikki Haley is a better politician than Hillary Clinton is. Hillary Clinton really was polarizing and women really didn't like her. So a lot of women went out and they voted not necessarily for Donald Trump, but against Hillary Clinton. So remember this as we look at the cast of characters. Don's talking about Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem is a phenomenal woman and politician. She's stunningly beautiful. Does that play with other women? All right, we're being completely honest here. Sarah Sanders, I think, is phenomenal. And I actually, my money would be on her, except that things are starting to shift. And that's what I'm going to tell you. She's just phenomenal. And she's kind of America's sweetheart. There will be those that say, oh, she's too conservative. That's what they're going to say on everyone, right? Like, if Nikki Haley gets to the top of the ticket or suddenly was named VP, which she won't be, but none of those scenarios would be applicable. But if she were, then guess what? Suddenly they'd say Nikki Haley was this, that, and the other. I mean, they're just going to go for the jugular. So you have to anticipate that. So again, let's just drill back on, if you wanted to get women in the middle, who would resonate? Can't be too threatening. Therefore, not too much lip gloss, not too much, you know what I'm saying? Like, Leslie, you know what I'm saying. We've talked about this in the chats before. So I'm thinking maybe we just need to expand the field. Maybe we shouldn't be so women-centric. I mean, if women have a hard time with other women, then maybe the answer is, how do you bring in more women? Maybe you don't need another woman on the ticket. Maybe you need someone who's got a fantastic story, who's overcome a lot in terms of their own personal experience in their own life, and is credible, that women will not feel directly threatened by. So maybe that means you need a man. I'm just saying. Look, I don't think that way, but I'm a realist here. And so I want to see this forward. How does he get to the finish line? So if we leave the woman aside for just a moment, and there's some phenomenal women out there, don't get me wrong, I just don't know if that's going to win it and win the day for him. What if you said, all right, let's go and look at some of the minority and Hispanic population. They actually like Donald Trump. I mean, Biden's down 20 points with the Black community, and Donald Trump's like really knocking it out of the park in ways that Democrats are like, wait a second, this is our territory. These are our people. This is our base. Why is Donald Trump doing well? Well, because, he's talking like a real person about things that actually do matter to people, like having good education for your kids and not so many onerous taxes and being able to put food on the table and all of these things. I mean, this isn't rocket science, people. It's not. I mean, the Democrats overthink this stuff. And so if you think about that, do you want somebody then who can bring in Hispanics, Black Americans, and hopefully like you're going to bring in more women with whoever you go with this particular person? That's the idea. So David saying Tim Scott. Leslie, I know you agree with me on that. There's a lot of, interesting idea. One idea I just want to float out there, and I don't want to embarrass him or anything, but we'll try and get him back on the show. Remember Byron Donald? Remember he was on the show. He was fantastic. You guys loved him. He got like some of the biggest numbers I've ever seen. And you know what? I loved him. I loved him because I'm like, oh my gosh, finally somebody who knows what the Federal Reserve is, somebody who understands inflation, somebody who can speak intelligently about the economy. I was sort of shocked. I said to him, Byron, like, this doesn't happen very often in the political world. You're a little bit of a unicorn here. You actually understand Fed policy, the stock market, etc. Let's see, do we have a clip, Drew, of Byron, the congressman from Florida, who could be going on to some very big things? Take a peek. I know that you are on the Financial Services Committee. Walk me through what's happening as we look towards finding some solution here on our debt and deficits, because as far as the eye can see, it's not looking good.
Well, first with the Fed, this new discount window that they used to help bank balance sheets, by what I've been able to grasp and understand, is that banks have been going on and borrowing this money from the Fed. Well, the Fed just doesn't get that money from anywhere. They got to try to find a way to create it in order to lend it to the banks. And I think that's what Art Laffer's talking about there with this new liquidity that's now coming into the system. That's number one. Number two, Washington has actually made matters worse with the massive overspending in response to COVID-19. And I know at the time people were concerned about our economy, the CARES Act, etc. But the stuff that Joe Biden did, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, or like I like to call it, the Green New Deal's little brother, because that's really what the bill is. All those spending items that they did and they put together, all that did was inject massive amounts of fiscal stimulus into an economy that didn't need it. Our economy in 2021 was already ready to get back on it because states were beginning to reopen. People were going back to work. People had money in their bank accounts because of COVID stimulus through the CARES Act. And there was pent up demand for people just to travel, live life again. All these things were going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then we dumped in another $2.5 trillion of federal spending.
I'm like, he gets it. I mean, it's so refreshing for me to actually talk to somebody who understands this stuff, because typically most people in Congress, they don't even know the difference between the Fed chief and the Treasury Secretary. I mean, so Byron actually has a background in this. He's got a tremendous story. He grew up in the Bronx, dirt poor, in the projects, really he said he had a really wonderful mom who was not going to put up with anything. And she really encouraged him. And he, at one point in high school, was sort of like, you know what? I need a way out. I need a way out of this poverty. And he decided to start learning about the stock market. So he went on to become an asset manager, and now he's a congressman. He's young. He's from Florida, which might be a little bit of a wrinkle. Guys, we got to investigate this. But I was with some people in the know, and we were starting to talk about him a little bit yesterday afternoon and early last night, because I'm making the point that I think that you can't try to outthink this stuff. Okay, we want to bring in women, so we're going to go pluck a woman out. Maybe that's not the most direct path. Maybe you bring more women in by putting someone in who has competency in the financial space, because what happened in that New York Times poll that I just quoted you, that little focus group that they did with 13 independents, 12 of them said the economy was the biggest issue. 12 of them said they're going to vote for Trump because of the economy. Well, I think if you keep drilling down on the economy and you get a vice president that actually understands it, you might have a winning ticket. Dun, dun, dun. What do you guys think? I'm seeing your commentary. You know, we get some time. Trump said he's not going to make the decision like tomorrow. There's other people still in play. We've talked about Ben Carson. We've talked about Tim Scott as well. Was it David? You're talking about Tim Scott. We shall see. I'm just going to give a little plug for Byron because I know that he understands economics, and I would like to have people in the White House that actually know how to add and subtract and maybe even multiply and divide. What do you know?